So ARK added this new feature that's kind of as crazy as mutations. I'm talking about traits. Dino traits were added along with the release of Aberration, and they can be manipulated if you own the Bob's Tall Tales DLC. I know what you're thinking, great, another feature stuck behind another stupid paywall just like the Pyromane. But that's not exactly the case. You can still take advantage of these with a mod called Better Traits, which was approved by Wildcard. But before anything else, let's just go over traits in general. So now, whenever a dino spawns in, it has a really high chance of spawning with a trait attached to it. Each species of dino has traits that can only be applied to the same species. Even though the traits are a universal concept and every dino and animal in the game has them, if you get a trait from an RG, you will only be able to put that trait onto another RG. Even if it's totally useless for that dino, you cannot take a trait from like an RG and put it onto an otter. These traits all have vague descriptions that sort of give you an idea of how they work, but they aren't exactly very detailed. That's fine, we have a way in game to see the details later when we're at a higher level, or you can just use the wiki page. I'll have it be the first thing linked in the description. That way, if you want to read over some of the traits while you're watching the video, you can. When looking over these traits, you'll start to see some that catch your eye and sound very good. Carefree, Vampiric, Giant and Kingslaying, Tenacious, Mutable, the Bearing trait with all of its subcategories. There's a lot of really nice ones that are kind of ideal to get. All of these traits, and yes, I mean all of them, range from Tier 1 to Tier 3, with Tier 3 being the best and Tier 1 being the worst. Let's look at Sprinter and figure out what each tier would mean. So the trait Sprinter reduces stamina drain from sprinting by 4%. And at the far side over on the wiki, we see that it has a level bonus of 2%. This means that every extra level of the trait will be 2% better. So a Tier 2 Sprinter would have reduced stamina usage by 6%, and a Tier 3 Sprinter would have reduced stamina usage by 8%. This could be very useful for, say, a Pteranodon or a Wyvern that you use to just fly around the map for travel. Just remember though, if you want to get Sprinter on a Pteranodon, you'll have to tame a Pteranodon that has the Sprinter trait. Hey, it's Future Editing Difto here. I should have mentioned this when I initially read the script, but things like wyverns or rock drakes, which are untamable in the wild and you only get from eggs, how do you get traits from those? Well, any dinos that hatch out of wild fertilized eggs will have the same odds of having a trait as a wild spawned dino normally. So that means like when you go wyvern egg hunting through the wyvern trenches of Scorched Earth, those eggs have a chance to have a trait on them. But any wyverns you're breeding yourself will not. So now you know that traits will spawn randomly with dinos around the map, and they can only be applied to the creature of the same species. How do we acquire these traits and then apply them to our own creatures? Because yeah, sure, this trait sounds great, but I found it on a level 10 dino. I have no interest in that. I want to use my high level tames. This is where we'll go over two of the new items that were added in with the Bob's Tall Tales DLC, the Gene Scanner and the Gene Storage. The storage is exactly what it sounds like. It's just a fancy looking box that'll hold on to all your traits you collect. The scanner is a bit more complex, and you kind of need it to be able to use the storage. The Gene Scanner gives the ability to track dinos anywhere on the map. That's kind of fantastic. By opening up the radial wheel, the default key is holding R on your keyboard, you can go into the Gene Scanner and then select Creature Track Scan. When hovering over it, you'll see there's a max level you can track. This is based on your character's level. If you want to track higher level dinos, level up your character. Now that you choose a dino you want to track, the Gene Scanner will use these arrows to point you in the direction of the closest dino within the level you can scan. No, it doesn't prioritize the highest level dino, or it doesn't prioritize a male or a female or any of that. It will simply point you to the closest one that you can track. Then, once you find the creature that's being tracked, you can look at it with the scanner, you can see the level, the gender, the trait it has, and then decide what you want to do. Do you want to tame it? Do you want to kill it? Whatever. Conveniently, and definitely not spawned in, are 5 dodos, all right here. All max level, and they all have some traits. Isn't that wild? These 5 dodos have between them Quick Hitting Tier 2, Frenetic Tier 2, Angry Tier 1, Aggressive Tier 1, and Giant Slaying Tier 1. Yeah, these are the traits we want on dodos. So let's go ahead and tame them all and acquire their traits. You tame them all the normal way you would tame any other creature. And then once you have them tamed, you can simply stab the hell out of them wherever you feel is best. And then this menu will pop up and you can collect the traits into the scanner. One scanner can hold up to 10 traits at a time. Now you can take these traits over to the Gene Storage, open the menu, and store them in there for later. For now, we don't care about stats, so we're just going to take 2 of these random dodos and breed them together. And then we'll throw all the traits we got onto it. So we hatched our baby, we claimed it, we gave it some food. Now while it's growing, let's throw the traits into it. Just use your gene scanner to collect the traits out of the storage. Then go over to your child and stab your rod into it like a Catholic priest, and you'll be able to put in up to 5 traits on one dino. Yes, you can stack multiple of the same trait. So let's say we got 2 tier 3 giant slaying traits and we wanted to make super dodos. You can absolutely do that. Just know you'll have to find all those traits. They cannot be duped, they cannot be bred in, and most traits can only be stacked up to 3 times per dino. So that means we could have 3 giant slaying traits on this dodo, but then the other 2 traits would have to be something else. There are certain traits that cannot be stacked, such as excitable or carefree. Just see the wiki for the maximum amount of stacks you can have per trait. And then that's sort of it. That's how the traits work. And then just like those wild dodos we tamed, these traits can be pulled off of the dodo we just raised up. But just be warned, once you take a trait off of an adult creature, you cannot put it back on. But this is really nice for those traits you'll want to pass down, like mutable health or mutable melee for your boss dinos. So let's go over all of this stuff again one last time, because that was kind of a lot of information vomit I just threw at you and expected you to take in. Alright, first, traits have a chance to be spawned on wild dinos that you can then hunt down and tame to collect. No, they cannot be bred in like stats or mutations, and you must use the gene scanner to collect the traits. Secondly, you can only use traits between dinos of the same species. Anything you get from a dodo can only go onto another dodo. Anything you get from a saber-tooth can only go onto another saber-tooth. You get the idea. Thirdly, all traits, and yes, I do mean every single trait, spawns in between the tier of 1 to 3. Tier 3 traits are the best, tier 1 traits are the worst. And the fourth thing, well, I sort of mentioned it with the first, but traits can only be given to creatures that are not fully grown. A baby, a juvenile, or an adolescent. So don't forget to put those traits on while you're imprinting your babies. And lastly, you can have up to 5 traits on a single dino. And most traits can stack up to 3 times, with the exception of a couple like Carefree or Numb. This means you can absolutely go crazy with something like an Anki. Let's say you put 3 tier 3 mineral-bearing traits on it. That would make metal weigh essentially nothing, because the Anki would have already its 85% weight reduction, and then another 90% on top of that. So that's sort of the gist of it all. I could have gone a bit more in depth, but I like to keep my guide videos as short as possible. Let's be honest, none of you wanted to watch a 30-minute ARK video about some stupid mechanic. You just wanted to learn it. Luckily, I am here for you. I actually started making these videos with the mindset, what videos would I have wanted to watch when I started playing ARK? Because back when I started in 2015, they all sucked. So yeah, thanks for watching, boys. Hopefully I covered all your questions and concerns about the traits. If I did, drop a like and a sub, that'd be awesome. If I didn't, well, feel free to leave a comment so that way I can just not read it. I'll see you on Twitch. Adios, dudes.